Hey guys, Gameboy3800 here once again, and today we're back with the two D-Series laptops. And we have two little things here today. As you can tell from here, we have some processors in today. So I don't know which one is which, even though it looks like they've been opened. That was not by me. So let's see what's in this first one here. Alright, this here is the Pentium 4 661. I do hope you can see that. So 661, that is going into this machine. It is a slower clock processor, and it will be slower than what's in it now, but it is also running a lot cooler. This has a Pentium 4 570 at 3.8 gigahertz. It is a 115 watt processor. As you can imagine, that being in a laptop is extremely hot. Nope, didn't mean to toss it off the table, but I'll get it later. So with this being only 84 watts, it'll be a lot cooler, and hopefully not idle at 70 degrees. And now the next processor here must mean it's for this machine here. Cut that off, slide them out. And you can't see this one too well, but I'll try. This is a Pentium 4 670 at 3.8 gigahertz. Now this is another 115 watt processor. It is going to replace the 560 processor that's in this machine. And it is the same wattage, but I will offer better performance. This computer does handle the heat better, so that's why it's getting an upgrade versus a downgrade. So, same thing as usual. I'm going to use some Arctic Silver 5 for the thermal compound. And I'm going to be using some 90% or 91% alcohol to clean them. So I guess, without further ado, let's crack these bad boys open and see what's inside. We're going to go ahead and start with the D700 because I've taken that computer apart so many times it's like memory now. So I'll be with you once this is out of the way. Okay, so here we are. Let's go ahead and flip this machine upside down. And turn it around this way so that you can get a better view. And we have some screws here holding or covering the CPU heat sinks. It's only two screws. I'm going to leave them right there on the fan grill so they don't get lost. Now this battery is completely dead, so I don't need to worry about it, discharging or anything like that. And here we see the heatsink. We see a big slab of copper, and then the CPU is directly underneath these four screws here. I'm going to undo them in a cross pattern, the exact same way we will put them in. Now I am hoping that the BIOS recognizes the CPU right away. I have not found an update for the BIOS, but I assume it's not the most up-to-date one. Alright, so it's going to take a bit of effort to undo the heatsink because it's stuck to the processor. Oh, wow. It required a lot of effort, but nothing broke. Here's the old heat spread. It went out nice and even still it was super hot. And here you can see just how thick their CPU fins are, and just how big of a block of copper this thing is. It's ginormous. So this here's the 570 coming out now. It's not too hard to take out. And now inside goes the 661. It can only go in one way, give it an extra wiggle to make sure it's in place. And then I like how there's a piece of the chassis cut out so that it can have, you know, the room to have the swinging arm go. And if you hear like a lot of ambient computer fan noises, don't worry, it's just Project Envy under this table doing some updates. Yes, it is still around. That's a computer I'm not selling. So we're going to grab some toilet paper. Just make a nice folded up piece so that we can easily clean the processor. Now the processor is probably already nice and clean, but you know, you want to be sure you have the smoothest piece of metal you can have. Heat spreader. And once more over, pressing down not too hard. And there we go. Let's go ahead and get the dry side. And that's that. Now the heatsink with all that old thermal goop all over it will be a bit more of a hassle. So what I'm going to do first is go over it with a dry thing of toilet paper to be sure I get as much as I can. And even so, I still get some on my finger. Wiping it on the pants to make sure that they stain forever. Seriously, thermal paste does stain horribly. And it's impossible to get off without getting on your hand. Not too much worried about the grease I got on the chassis, but you know, you don't want it on there. Alright, that's ready for some rubbing alcohol now. And then we'll get a nice glob of thermal paste on the processor and go on from there. Because we already got a lot of it off with the dry piece, we don't have too much debris coming off, but you know, we're still going to give it the once over, or twice over here. And then now once with the dry side. And now you can see that it's all nice and shiny. So now we're going to get the thermal paste. And put a nice even size spot in the center. There we go. That's probably more than enough, but you know. As Luke tested in one of his videos online as tech tips, more doesn't really mean bad. Only if you do a supremely small amount does it ever become a concern. Alright, so back in it goes. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do one corner at a time. There's numbers on the heatsink of which one to do first, and we will follow them to a T. I'm not going to screw them down all the way, so that one side's not getting all the pressure. I'm going to screw them down bit by bit, one corner at a time. Now I'm going to screw them down all the way, one at a time. Do not force it once they stop. Once they stop, that's their maximum. There we go. Now we can go ahead and get the cover back on. Just slides on like that. And that's ready to get back screwed in now. And last one there. And there we go. that one is done and good to go. Let's get these pieces of trash out of the way and get the alien wire back in its spot. Alright, let me get the alien wire up here and we'll start working on that now. Alright, so here we are with the alien wire. Now we're going to do something different first, this time. This battery actually does hold a charge, so we do need to remove it for this computer. And it requires you to unscrew these screws here. Now you can use a flathead screwdriver, or I'm using a 50-cent piece here. There we go. Yep. It's actually not quite a big battery, but it is still 6600 mAh, or whatever that equates to in watt hours. First thing I'm noticing is there are some loose screws under here. And then one screw's even missing. Awesome. That's fun. Anyways, now that we have the battery out, we're free to work with the processor side, which is also the battery side. So same exact thing, we have some screws holding on the CPU cover. Quite a bit more screws this time around. Where the other one only had 2 holding it down, it had 1 missing one. But you know, 2 total holding it down. This one has 5 total holding it down. And after you do that, it pops off nice and easily. And here we have a similar looking story. We have a CPU thing and a big old slab of copper. And here's a temperature sensor that has to be undone on this one, but that seems to be the only difference. I'm not sure if these screws come out or if they stick in with the heatsink. It looks like to me that they stick in. There we go. And it looks like there's nothing holding in the heatsink, so I guess we're free to, yep. Oh. Okay, these screws do not stay in. You have to be careful with them. Where did the last one go? I have 3. I do not see where the last screw went. That's unnerving, to say the least. I know I undid 4. Okay, well anyways, I'm going to leave them in the battery bay. This is slightly different in the fact that it has 2 big copper things, which is why it's able to handle a more powerful Pentium 4 processor a little bit better. It also has some VRMs to keep cool. How many phase is that? 4 phase? Yep, looks like a 4-phase power delivery system. I do not know what the stock power delivery system is on a Pentium 4 motherboard. I don't think I'll look into it, because I kind of don't care. What I do care about though is, where did that last screw get to? I can't screw it in safely without having it. I'll get right back to you. It's probably in someplace extremely stupid, but you know, that's the way things roll. And yep, you were looking at it the whole time and laughing at me. It was right there. Oh well. Let's go ahead and get this processor out of there. I don't know if that's anything good here. But yeah, this is a Pentium 4 560. It's going to join its brother, the 570, right there. And I noticed something. I need to take a closer look. I'll be right back. From my angle, it looked like there was a bent CPU pin, but I took a closer look at it, and it doesn't seem to be bent. So I'm going to continue on. And if it is bent, then oh well. The only thing holding it in place was the other CPU. Right, that's in there. Now, it's not as easy to get to that hold down thing as it was on the other machine, but oh well, what are you going to do? Alright, so now we're going to clean off this processor as well. Same way we did the other one. There's a black mark on it that I can't seem to get off. I couldn't rub it off with my hand, and I think it's going to come off with the rubbing alcohol. Well, it must have been like when you write on the CPU, that's what you get. Because sometimes people, like tech review things, would write on it what it is. Because, you know, sometimes you can't always see the label on it too well. And that's that one. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did for the other unit on this heatsink here. I'm going to shut out with a dry piece and then go on from there to make sure it's nice and shiny. And I am noticing some different metals here. This seems to have a nickel coating of some sort, while the other one was all pure copper. So maybe it increases performance, maybe it decreases. All I know is, oh, okay, never mind what I was going to do. I just went right for the wet stuff. I may end up replacing that shim there, or that thermal pad. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it on the thing here. It's kind of dirty actually. I should replace it, but I don't think I actually have enough of this stuff. There we go. Oh, I see what happened. I don't know if the person who put on these did the same thing as this, but look, it's got some tape of some sort on it. Metallic tape. Alright, you can do that if you scratched up the surface a lot to get a new, cleaner, smoother surface. And I guess it works, since it does perform cooler. We're going to go over it a few more times with some rubbing alcohol. And then try it up. And go ahead and put some thermal paste on and be all hunky-dory. Alright, same story. About the same size dot of thermal paste. There we go. And now the heatsink's ready to go on. And you can get a nice look there of how thick this copper thing is. Can I reach that easily? No, not really. Okay. I'll get that after the fact. Alright, so one screw in at a time. Actually, I would just put them all in there and I screw them in one at a time. So this also has numbers on the heatsink. We're going to do the same thing we did before. One at a time. It's a bit harder this time because the block can move around a bit more freely. Or actually, I don't know what it's called for a heatsink. I know for water cooling, the thing that goes on the CPU is the CPU block, but what would you call it on a heatsink? Alright, same thing as before. Get a nice even spread. Now I will struggle to get this piece in. Maybe. Yep, be right back. There we go, with a great deal of effort, 20 nights and 20 days, it's finally plugged in correctly. And now the battery, actually first let's get the heatsink cover back on. Doesn't want to go on quite easily. You see it's kind of like lifting up still. Oh well, maybe it's supposed to do that. And if it doesn't, then, broken machine again. Gonna get one corner at a time. Last screw. Alright, now the battery can go in. Gonna get our 50-cent piece here. Actually, get them in there just by spinning them a lot like that. Shut up, eBay. This one is almost down. There we go. That one's down now too. And there we go. Alright, both of these machines are good to power up and test and make sure they didn't die. Let's see if that is indeed the case. I'll be right back with you. Alright, here they are. Let's go ahead and start out with the Alienware. Good news, no explosions yet. And it boots up. Alright, we're going to let that continue on and see what Windows 7 detects the processor at. This one now is the moment of truth kind of machine. Shut up, Alienware. Let's get a good look at this. Take your bets, take your bets. Did it survive or did it become died? Alright, this machine is not posting right now. It would do that sometimes, and this machine needs to restart to activate its stuff. So we will let it do that. And try to get this one up and running again. It is not flashing the hard drive light at all. It might be what I feared, and it does need a BIOS update that is impossible to find because this machine is so rare. So, what processors can I put in this that it will support? It supports 500 series just fine. I'm going to see if I can find a 500 series chip that works really good. In the meantime, let's take a look at this really loud machine over here. Zoom in on it so that the white balance actually does something eventually. Just going to go ahead and quit that. And let's go ahead and start up the device manager, or system, actually would be better. And there we go. Do you see this? We have a Pentium 4 running at 4.4 or 4.04 gigahertz. Right now it's running at around 3.3. It's saying it's a Pentium 4 600. Okay. If we shove it into high performance mode, what will that do? Because it's saying it's at 4.04 gigahertz, which there was no 4 gigahertz Pentium 4 processor, at least none that were released. This isn't that stupidly uncommonly rare thing, is it? Alright, we're going to have to push this to make sure I'm not just seeing things and going crazy. Intel burn test, where are you? Desktop. Alright, there's sound coming out of you. What are you doing? There we go. Alright, begin. Core temp. Alright, core temp is like died. It's not giving me any updates on that thing. So I'm going to have to go ahead and get CPU Z installed on this to confirm whether or not it's actually at 4.04 gigahertz as seen here. Because if it is, then okay, I won't complain, but how? This does not have the most up-to-date BIOS. Maybe I should leave it out of date to keep the 4 gigahertz. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and download CPU-Z. In the meantime, I will go ahead and let this do its Windows thing here. So I will be right back. Alright, we're back. And I think the scores are actually lower than before. Okay. Maybe it does need the BIOS update to correctly read everything. And maybe core temp wasn't dying on us and it actually was only being read as a 3.3 gigahertz chip. No. Of course. There we go. Maybe one of the USB ports on the side is dead too. I don't know. So let's get CPU-Z installed. Accept. Yada 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 yada. Okay, CPU-Z, what do you tell us? Yep. CPU-Z tells us a different story. I have no idea why. Windows says it's at 4.04. Will it go up if I run burn test? Let's find out. No, it's not going up with a burn test, so it's just a fluke with Windows here. At first I was really excited that it would be like the 1 in a million chance of getting a 4 gigahertz Pentium 4. Stop. But no. Now let's see if core temp can revive itself here. Looks like yes. It will take a few days to get the thermal paste set in, but I do have a 3.8 gigahertz chip in there now. Everything should be fine. Less fine though is that it needs a different processor. I will figure that out, but right now I have no recording space left, so I'm going to end the video here. Thanks, Game Boy Out. I will see you in the future.